Welcome to Sports Injury Talk, presented by Regain Sports Drink and Momentum Fitness and Health. I am Jason Venckus, a NASM certified personal trainer and corrective exercise specialist. Each time we talk, I'm going to take a sports injury that happened at some point, usually over the last week. I try to make it pretty relevant, break it down, apply it to our lives, and talk about how we can both treat and prevent the same issue in our own lives. So you may have heard that Kara Goucher, who is a world champion silver medalist and two-time Olympian, has switched from road running to trail running. She has a long list of road, track, racing accomplishments, including first at the 2008 Olympic trials in the 5,000 meter, third in both the New York and Boston marathons in 2008 and 2009, respectively. And she won the U.S. Women's Championship in the half marathon in 2012. So pretty long list of great credentials for road running. So, but after an attempted return to marathon in Houston in early 2019, she decided that she would make that switch. Why? Well, if you've looked at the title here, you probably know why. She needed something new, where she had no previous expectations, a fresh start, all because of a hamstring injury. So she needed somewhere where she would basically become a beginner again. And this was mostly in part to a hamstring injury. Trail running would provide a new challenge in uncharted territory, even after she swore she would not go to trail run. In addition to the new challenge, trail running provides a little more cushion for your muscles and joints than road running do, so that's great for us older people. That is, if you don't beef it on a tree root or a rock while you're running those trails. She had other options. She could have retired from running altogether, become a coach, collected money on endorsements, all sorts of stuff like that, right? But if you are a runner, you know you are always a runner so long as your legs are working. So yes, she made the switch to trail running with her eyes set on the Leadville Trail Marathon in June of 2019. So she ran it, and it was something different with new challenges. She did manage to finish first in her age group and fifth overall as a female. So trail running is a different beast. The training is much different. Pace is replaced by technique. And we can go into that on another show if you want. Probably because, and we probably will, because I'm getting into trail running myself. I'll be 42 this year. Just some things I've been listening to the 10 Junk Miles podcast lately. They did a product review for Regain. Still trying to find out which episode that is. But they have invited me out to their Badger race. So, and I'm just kind of getting more into the trail stuff. So, but what I'd like to focus on today is the hamstring injury. Hamstrings can be buggers, pain in the ass, or just below the ass. And they can take a long time to heal. The hamstrings are made up of three major muscles with long names, but the main one to think about here is the biceps femoris. They're responsible for flexion of the knee and extension of the hip. For Kara, injuring her hamstring in 2015 would come back to haunt her in 2019. She was one of the fastest female runners. She had passed Paula Radcliffe. She was on top of the running world. She wanted to stay or return to the top, but as we get older, our bodies don't heal as fast or as well. Kara was now in her 40s, as am I, and she was pushing for the same pace as she was in her 20s and 30s. Not always easy to do. She did realize, though, that she will never put on a USA kit again or make a team, but this in no way diminishes her accomplishments. Again, she could have easily given up. But instead, she switched gears, and it seems to be working out. And we're going to see as races open up again. Hopefully. As I mentioned, I've been listening to 10 Junk Miles and getting into trail running myself. And I, too, have a little history with hamstring issues, even recently. So that's why I want to talk about this, because I want to be able to help you. So let's dive into this. First, we'll talk about how to address injuries and overall tightness, and then we'll talk a bit about keeping them healthy and avoiding those injuries. So let's go. So addressing tight or overactive hamstrings is sometimes about the hamstrings, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you can overstretch your hamstring, leading to injuries. When you are running and you're extending, when you are running, you're extending the hamstring muscles, not contracting them as you would say like during an arm curl or even a hamstring curl. That plus more people are standing at work these days. And if you feel the ache of a sore hamstring, it's natural to think that you should stretch it out. But it's not always the case. Because sometimes a muscle can be tight because it's actually over lengthened, and stretching will not take care of the problem because it's already overstretched. I went through this. So in fact, stretching will most likely irritate the muscle further. So how do we fix that? So I mentioned a minute ago that more people are standing at work these days. I am one of those people. I have the little thing that sits up on my counter, put my laptop on it, and I stand so I'm not sitting, because that's kind of what led to my piriformis syndrome. But if you're not careful, this can create a whole other problem. I want you to stand up right now. Stand how you like wherever your muscles push you. Just stand up naturally, shoulders back, and pay attention to what happens to your low back and your stomach. Is it pushing forward? And does your butt raise up a little bit? If it does, this is called an anterior pelvic tilt. Your pelvis tips forward and pulls on your hamstrings. Now, put your hands on your hips and pretend you're holding a bowl of popcorn and try and tip that bowl backwards, or at least get it to be even, right? That's probably where we want it, even, not backwards. And it should level out your hips, bring in your stomach so you can see your toes again, at least in my case, and your butt should go back down. So that's basically saying that, your hips are in the wrong position and that's stretching out your hamstring too much. Now, what can cause this? Well, tight hips. So if you're running a lot, not stretching, tight hips and a low back with weak glutes and abs. So that's why it's important to get in your strength training, right? So when your hips and your low back are tight, it will push your midsection forward, and your glutes and your abs are not strong enough to resist that force. And then this causes the hamstrings to overstretch too. It's hard to believe, but runners do need to have leg days. They should actually love leg days because it keeps them running longer and with less injury. So if your hamstrings are bothering you and you know for sure it's not a tear, by for sure I mean you've had it checked out by a qualified physician, it's time to incorporate kneeling stretches, low back stretches like cobras, and add in squats and like other leg work as well as abdominal work. The question always is, with the hamstring, should you still run? I would say it depends on the severity and if you're training for something. If it's just overstretched, I would recommend the above exercises I just mentioned, and either slowing down your run. You could get some heart rate training in, which is nice. It can help increase your speed when your hamstring does heal up. Or better yet, you can cross train. Biking might be okay, but swimming is better. Realize, especially right now, swimming is not always an option. Not a lot of pools open. But just as a personal story, right before my first marathon, I tore my calf. I spent 5 weeks biking my estimated time that I would have spent running. So if I had a 20-miler, that would have been about a 3-hour run on average. I spent the same amount of time on a bike. Unfortunately, at the time, that meant a stationary bike. But if you're not training for anything, I would seriously take some time off running. When I was coming back from a big injury, stress fracture, I may have mentioned this before, but I got up cold off a couch to do a stretch and tweaked my hamstring. So I wasn't training for anything at the time. I was just trying to get back in everything. It was better to just sit and wait it out because hamstrings can take a long time to heal properly. So why make it worse or extend that recovery time? So if you're not training for anything, I would say just rest it. Be careful with your stretches. Do the other things that I mentioned. Make sure you're strengthening your glutes, your abs, stretching the low back, things like that, in your hips. So it'll help you recover a lot faster. All right. So, that's what you should do if it happens. Now, what about avoiding it from happening? This is probably, the better part of it, but I always put that last. So how do we keep the hamstring muscles healthy? Tip number 1. Don't jump off the couch and into CrossFit, Zumba, or marathon training or the P90X yoga after a long layoff. Ease your way back into fitness and make sure you take time for flexibility. Tip number 2, warm up before you work out, but leave your static stretches for the end. Static stretches are, touching your toes or foam rolling or something like that. Do that stuff after. Before a workout or a run, you should warm up using dynamic stretches like leg swings or jumping rope, just like simple things. And if you're doing upper body, do some rotation, external rotation of the shoulders, just maybe some simple curls or swings, something. But yeah, save your stretching for the end. Like what we know is stretching, your dynamic or your static stretching. Tip number 3. This is the most important probably. Make sure your body is in balance. So I'm not talking about balancing a book in your head while standing on one leg. I mean, maybe a little. That would certainly help give you more even gait when you're running. But I'm talking about your muscles as a whole. They should be in balance in relation to one another. Kind of alluded to this already with, talking about the glutes, the hips, and the core and how it relates to your hamstrings. But every motion your body makes, there are 4 muscles that are affected. You have the prime mover, which is your main one, your antagonist, which works against it, the facilitator, which helps, and then a stabilizer, which keeps basically, your bones from sliding out of socket. So when one of these is out of whack, either it's too tight or too weak, it puts all 4 muscles at risk of injury by causing others to have to work harder than normal. So, for example, when you contract your hamstring muscles, your quadriceps automatically relax and lengthen. And when you contract your quadriceps, your quads, your hamstrings automatically relax and lengthen. Did I just say the same thing twice? I think I did. Anyway, overstretching your hamstring muscles can weaken them while making your quads too tight. This can put both muscle groups at risk for injury. So in addition, since every muscle in your body is connected by connective tissue, overstretching or overstrengthening one muscle group can create an imbalance in other muscle groups. I talk about this all the time. So if you tend to overwork your quads, that not only causes your hamstrings to weaken, it can cause your psoas muscle, which is this V-shaped muscle that helps lift your knee to your chest, causes that to tighten. Then tilting your pelvis and weakening your lower back muscles. So you see how that all kind of came back around to that tilting of the pelvis? So these are all things that you need to think about. All right, so there are exercises you can do to work on that pelvis tilt. One of them is strengthening your glutes, stretching the low back. But the other one is actually mentally thinking about it. It's more of a mental trick. When you're standing there and if you start to feel your low back or your hamstrings are tight, pay attention to what your pelvis is doing. Put your hands on there and do that popcorn bowl exercise again and tip it back. All right. So you tip it back and that stomach should come in. The front of your hips, the front of your pelvis should tip back up. Right. So how do you know that your muscles are out of whack? Well, sometimes you could feel it, but the best thing to do is to find yourself a qualified corrective exercise specialist or physical therapist, and they can do movement screenings. We actually have one simple one on our website that can help out just about anybody, and that's in the shop. Again, that's in the shop on our website. So www.findingyourmomentum.com. Go to the shop or the store and look for a squat assessment. That's our movement screening. It's a very simple one. For only $25, you send me a video and I send you a personalized workout to help you balance your muscles. Feed your muscles. Tip number 4. Feed your muscles what they love. I know what you're thinking. Protein! My muscles are made of protein. Well, muscles are actually mostly liquid. Yeah, 75% water. So it's easy to see that muscles need to be hydrated to stay healthy. Otherwise, they become brittle and lose their elastic nature, making it easier for them to tear. Think about it like pizza dough. Kind of a weird analogy, but think about it. When it's raw, it's still full of liquid and therefore stretchy. You can stretch it for a while before it snaps or before it breaks or puts a hole in it, right? But when you bake it, you remove some of that water content and it becomes dry. On the edges, it can become crunchy because there's no liquid on top of it, and easy to break or tear, right? You can tear it with your hands real easy. So think about all those things. Make sure you're staying hydrated, and you know how to stay hydrated. Um, all right. So make sure you're staying hydrated. All right. That's it for today. We will try and have some more of these for you soon. It's been a crazy start to the year with regain, so I've been pretty busy. A little bit of a cold snap here in Chicago has slowed me down. That's why I have time to do this now. But if you are in the Chicago area and you need to replace your sports drink with something real, reach out to us and we can get you some regain with over 10 times the potassium of popular brands, way less sugar, and no artificial or tricky ingredients. Not natural, real ingredients. All right. So make sure to check us out both at www.regainsportsdrink.com. And if you need that movement screen, you can visit our shop at www.findingyourmomentum.com. Ta-ta for now.